Yeah. We're already behind. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the technical hiccups here. I should have just assumed that it was going to go wrong somewhere. But hopefully that's the only gremlin that we face. So yeah, I'm Bob Shand, and we'll just dive right in. So I'm going to be talking about Yubikeys, which are hardware security tokens, small little security devices like that, and I've got a couple of them. One that we're going to muck around with, and one that I actually use in my day-to-day life. So maybe a quick question, quick show of hands. Who has a Yubikey, a security token, or something similar, a Google Titan or whatever? So maybe about half of us, okay? And I'm guessing most of you use them just for signing into your accounts or using the OAuth, the second factor kind of side of it. Does anybody do anything with GPG or any search stuff on it? Okay, blank faces. Okay. So yeah, we're going to quickly go through what a Yubikey is, a quick look at a security disclosure, if it really is a security disclosure, talk about the keys, what they can do, passkeys, passwords, and then I come from more of the developer side of the house. So we're going to talk about code signing, specifically signing our Git commits to provide a kind of level of trust in the source code that we're authoring there. So who am I? As I said, my name is Bob. I'm an industrial technology advisor with the National Research Council of Canada in the Industrial Research Assistance Program. That is a lot of mouthful to basically say my job is to help companies do research and development. And NRC IRAP's role and remit is to support R&D. Although I'm not doing that right now because I'm on parental leave and looking after my daughter. So I can point you in the right direction if you want to talk about IRAP things. That is the direction to my colleague Heather. Basically, I'm a big geek and a long-time developer, and I do lots of kind of random shit. And I'll probably swear because I'm not on work time. You can reach me in March to my official work email address, but I will not be reading any email until then. It's powered off. And you can get me my personal email, bob@shand.ca. And if you can read it on here, you can check the GPG links. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple of assumptions that we actually have some Yubikeys. This is primarily focused from the Mac side of things, and we want to do things right, whatever that is. It'll be somewhat technical, and this guide is a wonderful guide about how you can go about setting up your security keys. So if you just remember nothing other than that guide, that will point you in a lot of the right directions. So, disclaimer, not a security expert, not a cryptographer, not a lawyer. These views represent myself and not my employer, the National Research Council. That's probably the most important one. And buyer beware, if everything goes wrong, your house burns down because of things you've tried to do here, tough shit, not my fault. Okay. Right now, how paranoid are you today? And I think that's, it's always important to remember, I think, that, security is a spectrum, and doing some of this, is maybe outside the realms of what most normal people can do. And including outside of the realm of a lot of developers who are happy writing code, but then get all freaked out by the security side of things. So there's a happy place in the middle where we've got kind of a little bit of the DevOps security kind of culture and the developer culture. And it, I think it's always important we ask ourselves, how paranoid are we being today? And for some of the code that I write, I want to be more paranoid. I want to be able to demonstrate that the code I'm authoring has been authored by me, which is why I go to the lengths of signing in some of my commits. And I want to make sure that some of those commits don't have kind of bad stuff in them that I haven't actually pulled. So yeah, this can be hard, and it is very likely that we will screw up, as I did last night, going through my talk and trying to make sure everything worked. It all went horribly wrong. So don't worry if you get this wrong straight, on your first try. So these Yubikeys, other hardware tokens are available. So what is a Yubikey? It is essentially a relatively rugged hardware token. This one works over NFC and USB. And it has a bunch of apps or applets on it that allow us to do a bunch of security stuff. So there's just kind of a chunk from the Wikipedia page if you want to read it. They come in various shapes and sizes, and with various certifications attached or not attached to them. And you're likely to see them in the kind of USB-C style, or the ones that kind of on the kind of right of the screen that are kind of plugged into your laptop and used all the time. And there's some with kind of biometric authentication as well. So that's kind of what they look like if you haven't seen one. So what do they have? Well, like I say, there's a variety of applets that run on these things. And there's kind of shared configurable keys, so you can have like static passwords or passwords, as I see in the typo, or it can do kind of one-time pad challenge response things, the time-based or counter-based second factors can all be configured into the 2 slots that are available. So I use those on. I use one of these for my work account. Work don't officially support these as part of their login mechanism, but I have like a split password where a piece that I input and then I use a random static password on here. So I actually don't know what my full logon password is. It means I actually need my Yubikey to log onto my work. They also have on them this kind of universal second factor of FIDO2, WebAuthn/passkeys, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about those. There's an app that supports the personal identity verification standard for managing certs and keys on there in accordance with that standard, which is often used within US government organizations. And there's the OpenPGP. I am going quite fast. I apologize. Please ask me questions. It's because we've obviously had some technical challenges. And I wanted to do a live demo, which now happen, or we have to kind of climb around it like that. They can also be used as a hardware logon token. Certainly on Mac they can. On Windows you can, but it's outside of my domain expertise and knowledge. I just kind of threw this slide in because it is kind of useful to know that it can actually be used as a logon mechanism. So you can have a kind of passwordless logon experience if you so wish, or have a second kind of factor. Okay, so we have gone and bought our Yubikey, or we think we have, right? There's a lot of crap on Amazon, and if you buy it from Amazon, like if I buy, something from Amazon, there's, probably these days a 50-50 chance that what I'm getting is kind of knockoff, right? So how do we actually verify that this is an actual? Well, you can try, they are officially sold on Amazon, so I don't want to really throw them under the bus. But we do want to do those steps because we're super paranoid today. So if you go to the Yubikey site /genuine, there is a method there to verify that the key is genuine based on some attestation of certs that are installed on the device at manufacturing time. So that kind of works kind of in the browser. You don't actually have to know any of the technical details, but there is a link here that goes through how you could do all of that manual process yourself, just if you want to know any of this stuff. So we get our Yubikey sent to us. They arrive thanks to kind of post at our front door. They come in a little green packet like that, and we've kind of. This talk was initially developed for people who were maybe less security minded. So I kind of went on to a little bit of, why do we need the multiple second factors? And there's a clip from which movie? Anybody? Yes, it's very good. So well done. Bonus points for you. And in that clip, he's doing a voice bit. He's like, my voice is my password, verify me, which is a part of the story info. So really, when we look at authentication and multiple factors, it's kind of something you know, something you have, something you are. Right? We're wanting to make sure that if my password gets lost out there or somebody has my password, they need some of the other stuff to be able to log in and do things. Okay? So in my case, for a lot of my stuff, I might have a password and then I'll use this as a universal second factor. And we'll touch a little bit more on what I mean there. Okay. And yes, Sneakers. It's actually it holds up really well. I watched it last week if you haven't watched it for a long time or you've never watched it, it actually holds up pretty well. My partner, who's a vet, she loved it. She really enjoyed it. So it's rare, I think, you find a kind of crypto security movie that actually holds up well for people who aren't necessarily. So, I touched on this security disclosure. It's maybe just an interesting sideline that we'll touch on, because it's on that kind of paranoid weed kind of thing. So, to configure these, there is a tool from the manufacturer, Yubikey, and that allows you to turn on and off various features or configure pings, passcodes, and other features of the device. And you can, those links there show you how you can configure the device. And the GitHub there has one of the apps, this Yubikey manager there. And Yubikey, they actually have a list of all of code signing certs and identities that they use. So being somewhat paranoid on the day that I was developing this talk, I downloaded all of these, this new version of the tool, which there are newer versions since then. This was back in 2022 when I did this. And it shipped with a Mac installer, making it easier for people to install. Turned out it was actually a little bit broken, but then it rapidly got fixed. So they shipped I think if you look here, a package file, PKG, and a signature. Actually, without signature, anyway, they shipped something that was an installer, which they hadn't previously done. Because I am somewhat paranoid, I decided to check all of the certs that, because they list them on their website, I decided to go and check all of them. And I used this brilliant, if you're on a Mac, this brilliant app called Suspicious Package that allows you to examine all of the signing certificates on the Mac, or of that package file. And essentially you end up with there's a chain of certs from the author of the package, through the Apple Intermediate Developer Certs up to Apple Worldwide Developer Certs and their whole PKI infrastructure. The idea being that you can demonstrate that it hasn't been tampered with. But I noticed that the fingerprint of the installer, as listed there, didn't match the one that was on the website. So it raised the flag for me. Was it an oversight or was it malicious? Who knows? But I think in the security realm, we often have, it just takes that one oddity. That seems strange. And it's that inquisitiveness and that separates security professionals and people from kind of regular users, right? It's like, something's off. So something was off. So I dug into it. And again, somewhat technical. I was able to go and see that some of the other releases of the package actually had GPG signatures. So I checked all of those. The back history, all of this all seemed to look okay. I expanded the package file, and as you dive into the Mac ecosystem, you can find all these weird tools that you've never used for like 99% of the time. But essentially, I was able to extract a table of contents, which has another cert chain that was like pen encoded or whatever. So you're able to kind of pull out from that with a little bit of manual copy pasting and so on, and actually show that the chain was there, and that the key had expired or was a new key with whatever dates, and so on and so forth. And so it turned out the installer package was the one that was wrong. The actual code signed executable still had the correct fingerprints for the keys that they published you. So there's just some of the tools I use to kind of pull that information out. And there's a slide a little later on that kind of goes into detail about Mac's code signing architecture. So long story short, the certificate had expired. They'd issued a new one using the same private key. They just hadn't updated the website. So I let them know they updated the website. Everything seemed reasonable. So that's the little security disclosure. But they've been up for a few months, right? Nobody had bothered to look, or nobody had maybe noticed it, or whatever. So again, it's that inquisitiveness that makes the difference. So, my bold statement, the password is dead. Long live the... Get on to that. So, passwords, hard to remember. You lose them, you forget them, they get reused. Password vaults help, but aren't the real solution for everything. And again, you've got to think about what your threat model is. And they're often open to dumps and whatever. Right? And my security posture is different from that of my mum. She's happy to write down her Facebook password on a piece of paper next to her laptop. Oh, that's okay, right? But for me, for my Gmail account, my AWS root access account, my Apple account, all of those kind of high profile things for me, I want to take it to the next level. So second factors help. I mean, those time-based codes or counter-based codes that we've seen, or SMS, text messages being sent to you. They help, but they can still fall foul of people eavesdropping and phishing. I wanted to sign into my bank for something, but I was in Europe, so the code didn't come through, and so it's just not perfect. Okay? So this is where this universal second factor / FIDO2 / WebAuthn stuff kind of comes in and offers a better way of authenticating with services. So it's really, as with all things computing, there's lots of acronyms being thrown around and organization names. And again, apologies, you can't really see this on the thing. But it's a joint effort between the FIDO Alliance and the World Wide Web Consortium. And there's a browser component and a client kind of authenticator protocol to portion of it. And essentially, what these tools do is using kind of public-private key cryptography, tie a public-private key pair to a domain name and a secure mechanism through the browser, which means that these things are phishing resistant. You can't put these challenges onto a wrong domain. So if you've got like mylogin.foo.com, you can't have this pretend website with a stupidly long URL. It will only, it's bound to the domain that these logons are tied to. However, all of that is a real mouthful, right? If I speak to my mum again, I can't say, "Mum, have you set up your FIDO2 WebAuthn credential?" And she'd be like, "What the hell, dear? Do you want a cup of tea?" Right? She just won't care, right? So that's why we have a more human name for these things now, passkeys, which is a more human name. And I think a real good step, because you can talk about passkeys in a much more sensible way. And some of this is maybe slightly off, but I thought I'd just leave it as it was. Some of the terminology that's used kind of gets a little bit funky. But essentially, you can have, on one end of the spectrum, a passkey that's tied to an individual single device that it will not leave. So for some of my really high secure accounts, that's what I do. I've got this a passkey for certain logins that is tied to a physical key, and then I have backup keys associated. But it's basically, unless you have this device, you are not getting into my root token, my root Amazon account. And you know what? If you did get into my root Amazon account, maybe you could turn off that 2 cents a month thing that's charging me 2 cents a month and has been for the last 4 years that I can't find. You might be able to give me a favor. The other variant of them is this multi-device credential, which allows syncing behind the scenes across your device in an ecosystem that you're in. So typically I'm in the Mac ecosystem, an iOS ecosystem. So I can create a passkey on my Mac or on my phone, and then that through the iCloud key sharing, that will be available on my other devices. So that's still, for me, a leg up compared to passwords and some other things, but it's maybe one kind of leg down from just actually having it bound to a single device. But it's a hell of a lot more convenient. So I was going to do a demo. I guess, is there a USB-C port on this? Because I've only got a USB to those. I wonder if I prepared and brought a USB 4 key. No, I don't think I did. Okay, well, I was going to do a demo. I can show you on my phone in a little bit, or on my Mac, what it's like to create a passkey and what the user experience is, because it is very, very fluid. On the demo site I was going to show you, you go in, you say set a username and press the button on the authenticator. You can also require a PIN on this. So for my account, I require a PIN. So I have to put in my PIN, which is a short 6 to 24 character code, whatever it is. That unlocks the key and if 3 failed, locks the key. And then you have to go through a kind of recovery process. So it's very trivial. You put in your username, click register, click on your authenticator, and it creates everything behind the scenes and you're logged in. And then when you log out, all you have to do is put your key in and it will say, hey, I've got a passkey for this website. Do you want to use it? If so, touch your authenticator. If you have to unlock the key, lock it. But it's very smooth, it's very easy, so it's really good. So that was the site I was going to demo, just passkey.org. And passkeys should be available now in most ecosystems, certainly on the Apple ecosystem. I believe it's on the latest Android devices, subject to what kind of OS version you're running. So yeah, just passkey.org, try it on your personal device and see how it feels. However, not all is golden in this world. At the moment, if I've got everything in my Apple ecosystem and all of my passkeys, it's painful to move them to another ecosystem. If I wanted to go to Android, that'd be painful. I'd have to re-register a bunch of keys. Maybe the sites go, hey, you've already registered this key. I'm not going to let you register it again. So I don't want to have to buy new keys. I don't want to have to delete tokens. So there is a new spec coming that will allow migration of these credentials from one ecosystem to the other. But it's still relatively new, and companies are doing dumb shit, including some of the leaders who are pushing this, like Apple, who it looks like they released iOS 18.1 and macOS 15.1, and it looks like Yubikeys with a PIN set end up into this kind of authentication loop asking for the PIN. So it amazes me that features like that are released in point versions that screw things up. So, there's still a little bit right now of kind of be careful. The software that runs on these, or the things that run on these is the firmware on these is not changeable. So when you buy it, that's what the features that it has, and you're not going to be able to upgrade it or change it. So the newer ones with firmware 5.7 allow 100 passkeys on them versus 25 on the older versions. So yeah, when you buy one, check that it's the latest firmware version, and that genuine site will help you check that. So the password is dying. It's not dead yet. I hope we move away from passwords. So yeah, I would say now the password is dying, and long live the passkey. It makes everybody's life easier, makes my life easier, with improved security. Yeah, it's just, I think we should move more things to it. Okay, so now kind of flipping onto the developer side of things, and I was going to do a live demo, but see me when I'm around if you want to work through it in a shell session. So it's useful. So yeah, I author code for the living. I have authored some code that has gone into some government projects a little bit. Some government projects that were a little contentious, like the COVID Alert app. I submitted some fixes and things to. And there is scope in government work, for naughty people to want to do naughty things. And I think it's important that we demonstrate as authors of the code the authenticity of the patches and things that we're submitting. So there's nothing to say that you can't just sign your Git commits with the GPG key you've got on your machine. that's a step up on that ladder of security. But, there have been cases of people's machines have been popped and people are like just waiting in the wings, ready to add an extra file to your Git stash or your commit log that you haven't really paid attention to, so that when you do authenticate, or they will commit it and use that key that's there because there's maybe some hash credential somewhere. So what I've done and what I prefer to do is have this physical Yubikey and use the OpenPGP app on here and move keys to it. So that's what we're going to kind of do. So again, and when I wrote this, I was just playing with ChatGPT. Why might we do this? Again, it's that kind of authenticity piece that we're trying to say. We want to have this tamper-evident record. Why we won't want to do it, it's complicated. All right, developers don't want to do it. It gets in the way of things. If you have to rebase something, you've got to then, because you've signed each commit, if you're now rewriting the Git history, you've got to re-sign all of those, and it's just a mess, right? It's painful. So again, as with all things security, it's this trade-off. So here's what, something I was working on. It was supposed to be like an official government URL shortener. Didn't really go anywhere. But in Git, it shows, hey, this is a verified commit, right? So there is some visual thing there. But you can also, of course, in your Git history, view all the code and view all the signatures and what have you. And, again, for another talk I was doing, it's like, yeah, who knows? There's just, who's to say that PM hasn't committed code and written code, and unless he's actually got some kind of authenticity, some GPG or something else assigned to his identity, we don't know if he's written code or not, right? So I feel for certain types of things it's important to have this kind of signature. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with GPG/OpenGPG. It's a replacement, an open source replacement for critical privacy, supports hybrid encryption, symmetric, public key, private key, available on all good platforms, works on a kind of web of trust model. So if you have a GPG key, so Heather and I know that, and I could maybe verify, since I work with it, I could maybe look at driver's license and check, yeah, actually she is Heather, and that's actually her name. She isn't called Susan or something, and her nickname is Heather. I think I can talk to her and then verify her identity, and we can sign each other's keys, and through that there is this web of trust, in theory, that is built. So if I come across some commits from somebody that I don't know, there's maybe some kind of web of trust or a line through that mess to the other person, and I can have a greater sense of understanding their identity. As a little interesting aside, Git itself can use other mechanisms. It doesn't have to be based on GPG, but it can use X509 certs for your kind of code signing as well, which may be of interest to larger organizations. So to generate a GPG key, you can do it on the device itself. Then you run the risk of losing it. And you can prove that the key was generated on the device through some attestation. But if you lose it, tough shit. So generally what I prefer to do is generate keys in a secure environment and then import them onto the key. That's what I was going to show. For that, I typically use Tails, which is a kind of ephemeral boot environment. Again, on this kind of list of, using your machine that's connected to the internet versus using a machine that hasn't seen the internet, doesn't know what the internet is, and is away from everything. Pick your poison on that list of things. I think Tails works for me, and I just have an x86 machine that I boot, and I keep all of my private key material on that Tails install, which I keep in my house. So yeah, you're going to have to break into my house if you want my private keys. Please don't. So I was going to walk through creating these keys and transferring them onto the key here. And I can happily do that at the side with some people if you're really interested. Happy to show you what that process looks like. that guide is really good if you want to refer to it. And essentially what you do is generate a master key, the certify key, which you then generate subkeys on, and then you transfer the subkeys to the Yubikey, and then on your regular workstation, there is no private key material on the workstation, because all private keys are on here, which in theory they can't be extracted from, and that certified key is then offline. So, when you get an opportunity to look at this screenshot, that doesn't show what I was about to say. So you won't see that. You won't. Again, there's additional challenges then you have to do if you happen to be working on a cloud machine. You can't plug this into the big beefy machine you've got in the cloud, your Yubikey. So you can actually do agent forwarding between multiple machines. So I was working on a remote VM to do some stuff. I needed to commit some code from there. You can make all of that work. So, you don't limit yourself. So if you're looking to deploy these as part of a large organization, it's painful. There's lots of documentation out there. It's all over the place. Actually, no, it's not all over the place. Yubikey do a really good job of writing everything. Yeah. But it's definitely technical. Again, my mum's not going to do it. So as an organization that's looking to kind of put these out, you're going to have some challenges just in the management of issuing these. There's also some changes to some of the protocols in the newer versions. So if you want to set a PIN that, upon first use, the user is forced to change for their own PIN, those are in that client protocol 2.1. But it basically just becomes a pain to manage all of the certs and code signing. If somebody new joins your organization, you want to sign their keys so that they are demonstrably part of your organization. People lose things, they leave. It's just too painful. However, if you have a sufficiently large order, Yubikey can do customizations of the one session. If you've got a Fortune 500 and you're issuing thousands of these devices, there are methods to make that a little easier. And then this was just a little aside on, doing similar kind of ideas for actually code signing the executables or product that we generate. So why? Well, of course, typical OSs limit a user's ability to run untrusted code for whatever that means. So certainly on Mac, there's Gatekeeper, there's apps shipped outside of the App Store are still signed using developer certs that they issue. There have been supply chain attacks where people have, code that people are running has been signed or missigned. And really lots of small developers don't think about key management, right? Unless you've lost your keys, you don't think about it. It's a pain. So there's lots of Mac and iOS and other developers who lose their private key because they buy a new machine, and not everything is necessarily copied across from the feature. As I said, a lot of this was up Mac specific. There's a whole bunch of tech notes there from Quinn, who is an absolute star within the Apple developer ecosystem. If I could be a tenth as good as them in terms of my ability to write clear technical documentation, I'd be happy. So that kind of shows you how code signing works on the Apple ecosystem. And it's possible then to essentially using the PIV module on this Yubikey, load in the keys and the certificates. So much like our Git commits, you require a touch on this to sign your code. So I think that kind of, and basically there's more guides for So I've kind of gone a little bit longer. I know I've skipped over a whole bunch. There's probably some questions. I was going to do that live demo, but unfortunately, we'll have to sit around the table as the break starts if you wish to do that. But with that kind of covers the bits that I wanted to talk about. The closing things would be, buy hardware tokens, they're cheaper than your machine and your users involved. Right? So $100 each, well worth the investment, I think. So yeah, any questions? Shoot.
So I'm assuming in a larger environment where you have, for example, an established CI/CD pipeline, you have multiple developers that are doing Git commits during that pipeline. Would that be a complicated environment to deal with?
Yes.
As opposed to like an individual developer like yourself who's running your own, you've got your own Git commits and on your own.
Yeah, I think it's manageable. As with a lot of things, it's education. And the hard part I find at the moment is setting up the hardware token the right way for what that wants. So I think it's possible to, if it is an important thing for you, have somebody who knows this stuff like the back of their hand issue a key out and talk somebody through it. Because the day-to-day, once you've actually gone through the process of getting everything, all the secret material on here, is actually not too bad. You plug it in, I do my git commit, and it says, please insert key with a particular serial number, enter your PIN, and then touch the button. So the day-to-day of doing it isn't too bad. Yubikey do an HSM kind of version of this. So for your CI machines, you could use that one, which may store, many orders of magnitude more bits of private material. And you can set the touch policies on. So, for me as an individual developer, I say I want to touch this for every single sign commit that I do. You could say, okay, I want on a CI machine that's locked in a cabinet. You say, okay, well, I'm pretty sure that, somebody's not going to have access to that. It's air gapped to some degree. We run, it's in a cage. You could have a touch policy that allows it to be cache for a certain period of time. I don't know if that answers your question. So there's this kind of, again, where on that spectrum?
I could see the usefulness of it, opposed to just, setting, doing your commits to Git for that data. Especially, I have some critical infrastructure clients that are restricted by the government and stuff like that. It's very valuable.
Yeah. So it's certainly doable. I think there's a spectrum there. And for those type of clients, well, maybe it's not necessarily even the individual commits. Might be, but in other environments I've worked in, it's that final executable that's being shipped to customers. And you've got a small team, and maybe it's one day it's Fred releasing software, next week it's Jane releasing the software. The users are getting confused because it's signed by different people. I think there's value in packaging all that code signing for the installers and having that managed well in a proper environment. I think very beneficial. I think Corsair, I think they've got themselves in some trouble. Don't quote me on that. That's just like this weird thing I've got in my head that I thought I saw some problem with them. There's certainly been other vendors that have not managed their private material well and have fallen foul of that. Yeah, so happy to talk further afterwards if you wish. Yep.
So are there checks regarding authenticity built in platforms like GitHub or GitHub, or are those kind of specific parts of the CI/CD pipeline that have to drive on their own to make sure that, for example, commits that are not signed are not allowed?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so you can certainly in the tooling around Git, like say GitHub and things, you can say I only want verified commits on this branch, and it will stop those kind of things happening. But that isn't necessarily the tooling of Git itself. So I don't know if I've fully answered your question. It was a little hard to hear, so I'm happy to have a further discussion with you if I haven't answered it. But yeah, you can limit through commit books what type of things that you are accepting into your repository. So hopefully that counts. Anybody else?
I got two questions.
Sure.
We're talking about 9 password introduction of passkeys. but in my observation, I've seen some of the platforms just give a single authentication through passkey. They just you get in. But are we still focusing on MFA for like multiple factors, or are we just like are we like doing a more of a quality over quantity approach?
Well, a couple of things there maybe that need to be picked apart. Certainly some, again, when sites allow the use of passkeys, they can do various things in the configuration when you're setting them up. They can allow some things. They can say, I only want passkeys from this manufacturer of hardware tokens, or that meets this particular security requirement. And in your example, the passkey with a PIN set on it is two-factor authentication, right? Because it's like, it's something I have, it's something I know, because I've got my PIN, and I'm physically touching the button. So you are getting those multiple factors already in. I think they are a benefit. Like, there's one thing I have to remember that I don't care about passwords. I do not want to remember passwords. I have a PIN that's relatively secure. If the PIN is wrong 3 times, that is hosed. Nobody can use it. So then I'm going to have to go and find out my Tails install. If my daughter came along and just bashed on the keyboard, as a 7-year-old is want to do, as well as dribbling onto the keyboard, I'm going to have to fire up my Tails install, get my keys, find the pin unlock code. It's a pain. So, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. I went off a bit of a tangent, but yeah.
Another question was there was a cool tidbit that I missed about Bot was that he had the pleasure of meeting Steve Jobs as part of the team to demo a product. So can you tell what the product was? Was it Yubikey?
No, it has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
So I have, we were asked to submit some interesting tidbits of information. I worked on some of the earliest iOS software that was done by people external to Apple. So I worked on the Super Multi-Ball demo that was as part of the iPhone software development kit launch back in 2007, 2008. And we went for a 2-hour meeting to Cupertino to say what games developers want in a software development kit. And with hindsight, there was a few nodding winks and looks, and then we were basically locked up for about 4 weeks and held hostage at Apple. But we did get to meet Steve and help launch a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem for us. And an even further interesting tidbit on Super Monkey Ball itself, it actually started live as an iPod Touch game on the Wii with the click wheel. And even further interesting, it was actually a port of the Nintendo DS code. And if you want to play that, you can play it now via touchle.org, an open source re-implementation of old iPhone software, iOS 1. So there you go. All right, it's lunchtime. I'll stick around for anybody who wants to look at the terminal, and I'm happy to answer any other questions about your specific use cases. So thank you. Hope it was interesting.